introductions and get going. Good afternoon, everybody. So nice to see you. Or I guess we can't really see you. I can see that you're here because I can see the participants coming in the room. I wish I could see you. Okay. Expecting a few more people, but maybe they'll be signing on a little bit later. Looks like at least the attendees have leveled off. So I think we should go ahead and get going. So welcome everybody. I'm Laura Burris. I'm the chair of the biology department. And I'm really pleased today to host this pre-nursing webinar as part of our attempts to get out better advising for students in pre-health careers. And I think on the next slide, we'll do some introductions and then we'll give a brief overview of kind of some of the different routes to get into nursing. And then we'll open it up for questions. This is mostly to hear from you, but we've assembled a great panel of experts here. And I'm going to start by letting folks introduce themselves, starting with Brianna.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brianna Franklin. I'm the biology undergraduate specialist. So if you get anything from biology, it's most likely from me. So thank you for registering for this webinar, and hopefully we can get you some good information about getting into nursing.
Very good. Chris?
Yes, hello. I'm Chris Moffat. I'm one of the professors in the biology department. The area in which I advise in is physiology, and so a lot of students who are in the pre-health professions are in my classes and also come to see me for advising.
Okay, Marianne?
And I'm Marianne Van Dam. I'm the director and professor of the School of Nursing at San Francisco State. And we have those 8 different programs that keep me busy.
Indeed. Melanie?
Hi, my name is Melanie. I'm currently working as a registered nurse in the Bay Area on a cardiac telemetry unit, and I graduated SF State's nursing program in 2018 and received a BA in biology from Berkeley in 2016, and I'm going to be starting NP school at UC Davis this summer.
Terrific, thank you. And last but not least, Mary.
Hi, Mary Foley. I'm a clinical professor at UCSF School of Nursing. I'm also the interim director for their master's entry program in nursing, and you'll hear a little bit more about that as we go through the slides.
Terrific. All right, Brianna, take it away.
All right, before we get started, you will see that your chat is disabled. So for any questions or comments, anything you'd like answered, if you could put it in the Q&A box, it should be at the bottom of your Zoom screen there. You can type in your questions as we go through this PowerPoint, and then we will do a large question and answer portion at the end. We'll also take live questions as well if you want to raise your hand at the end, and we'll get through questions that way. So we will first go through SFSU's pre-licensure BS in nursing versus biology and other majors. And I will let Marianne and Melanie and Mary and Chris jump in whenever they want. This is a little bit more their expertise, but we'll give you some general information here. So a question you might be asking yourself right now is, should you be studying pre-nursing or biology? So SF State nursing major has been impacted since fall 1992. So that means that more qualified students apply than can be accommodated into the program. Typically more than 1,000 applications are received for 100 spaces each academic year. So the biology major is not impacted. So this can be a good route for you to go. And I think most of you are biology majors. So you can get a BA or a BS in biology or any other major. It doesn't have to be biology. And you can apply for the entry-level Master of Science in Nursing, so the ELM. And if you do general biology or biology physiology, you can meet all the ELM prerequisite coursework through completing those 2 degrees.
So I'm going to just throw in here
Yes, please do.
that we don't take people into the School of Nursing until all the prerequisites have been completed. So, but once you're in the School of Nursing and have been accepted, you never have to worry about elbowing your way to the front of the class to get a signature from a professor, because you're guaranteed a seat. You're going to get your classes, so that, and then we just want you to worry about learning. And so you don't have to worry about getting reaccepted or being thrown out of the major unless you fail. And that's certainly a bummer, which doesn't happen really, because we really do support our students a lot. However, you saw those numbers there, 100 for 1,000. And what that does then is say, well, maybe I should complete my BS degree or BA in whichever major you are. In this case, we're emphasizing biology, and that's fine. But with all the prerequisites that you have, get that BS, BA, and then you can come in to the master's program, and we teach you both undergraduate and graduate nursing. And I believe that's the same for Mary's program.
Yeah, let me, absolutely. And I was going to say that and for our master's entry, which is also classified by our nursing regulatory board as an entry-level master's, it is any non-nursing degree, actually, and the prerequisites and a 3.0 GPA, though you can appeal that. And it's fascinating to see the diversity of the students who've made a second career or sometimes a third career choice and have decided to enter nursing. The scale of our program, we've been averaging over 500 applications. We were able the last 2 years to take 80 students, and we actually link directly to the master's portion of your education. So you enter MEPN, you finish a pre-licensure fundamental year, you sit and pass, of course, the licensing exam, and then you move immediately into your master's. And so to apply to UC, you have to know what kind of nurse you want to be. Midwife, family nurse practitioner, pediatric nurse practitioner, psych mental health. So it takes a little pre-planning for you to envision your future. But that we're the pipeline really for about half of the master students at UCSF.
And we are asking the same, that you have a knowledge of what you would like to do. We have a clinical nurse specialist in all those different areas. Or, and after you have finished your nursing and have worked for a year, we have a family nurse practitioner program as well. We leave that more to Mary and the gang over there to do the NP education other than family nurse practitioner. But what we do is you're going to emphasize a specialty, but that doesn't mean you're wedded to it for us. You can change, and we can support some changes, because a lot of people don't understand the full realm of what kinds of nursing there are until you're in it.
Yeah. And we have that same situation, not to get stuck on this slide, but it actually gives you a great foundation for going forward. There are students who are able to change. We don't advertise it widely, and it really is because the students in MEPN have guaranteed the number of faculty we need in the master's program. So we need to know in enough years in advance, and as we renew the agreements with master's faculty. So we just kind of line people up occasionally, and it's really fun when this happens, I have to admit. Most of the students don't think that they will like acute care or hospital care. And then lo and behold, they are blown away by how amazing the world is, that nurses, we run those places. I just want you to know. And so they'll say, now I want to be an acute care, whatever, nurse practitioner, clinical nurse specialist. And it's really fun to see that maneuvering happen. But we do offer some joint masters. We also offer postdoc studies. So postmaster studies. So all kinds of ways to get where you want to go.
Fantastic. So we will move on. We'll talk about the ELM first at SFSU, because I think this might be the path that a lot of you biology already students might be taking. But we'll also talk about the BSN, and then we'll talk about the master's program at UCSF as well.
Great.
So the entry level master's into nursing. So you will apply after completion of a bachelor's degree in another field, so such as biology. And you will apply after completion of the same prerequisites and admission requirements as for the BSN. We'll go over that in a little bit. This is provided on the SFSU campus, and you will receive both your BSN and MSN at the completion of the MSN classes. And then the roadmap is the same. And then MSN classes are added in with the BSN classes. It is a 3-year program with the last year, so the last 2 semesters are only MSN classes. And then this will prepare you for the licensure exam to become an RN.
So let me give you the order of that. We're bringing you through undergraduate nursing first. But at the same time, and this is quite a load, you have 1 or 2 master's classes at the same time so that we can actually take an education that would normally take 4 years and put it into 3. And it's rigorous, but you're taking master's classes at the same time. With that said, we're giving you all the classes necessary to sit for the boards even before you graduate from the master's portion, right? You don't have to have a master's degree in order to sit for the licensure. Licensure, I want you to think about, is something separate, because those without a BSN, and I don't recommend that, I'm not recommending it, but a lot of community colleges have RN programs that give you an associate's degree in nursing. They do not have a bachelor's. They can sit for the licensure as long as you have finished the classes that the BRN states, right? So once that's done and you've got your license, then of course your educational part continues, and then degrees are conferred from a university, not from the BRN, right? So those are 2 separate little entities there. You want to add to that, Mary? Did I represent you?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not lying, see?
No.
Okay, and then about those requirements.
Oh.
So residency must be a California resident or be eligible for in-state tuition. Minimum grade point average of 3.0 or above for the last 60 semester units earned. Provide evidence of health-related work or volunteer experience. A personal statement, 3 letters of recommendation, and complete all 5 prerequisite coursework with a C or higher by the time of the nursing CAS, I don't know if it's CS or CAS, application submission. And so the prerequisites are human anatomy with the lab, human physiology with the lab, survey of chemistry with the lab, microbiology with lab, and statistics. In the next slide, I believe, we'll actually tell you which SFSU courses those are.
Well, let me tell you the truth about that minimum grade point average. That is true. You need that to apply to us. And I believe UCSF is the same. But when you see the competition, in reality, that gets bumped up a lot. We typically don't have people with less than 3.5 getting in. and it's not a requirement. It's just that's how high it gets pushed up, because we look at a whole point system. We give you points for your personal statement. We give you points for letters of recommendation, and we also grant some people the top tier interviews, because we want to make sure that you are able to communicate well, and that you are coherent, etc. And so we do and we give you points for that. So your grade point average still is the biggest weight. And when we are looking at an application, I'm going to say, and I think the biology department will love me for this, but it's been true all my life, is that the anatomy and the physiology grade, if all things are equal, I'm going to look at the physiology grade and say, you better do pretty well in those two, because your career and the decisions you make in your career are based in a good understanding of anatomy and physiology. So our admissions is a lot of work. And what I would say is that get that volunteer work, make sure that nursing seems to be really where your heart is. Push that GPA as high as you possibly can. And, the 3 letters of recommendation, we read them, of course, and they're all going to be glowing. They usually are. But you get points for every one of those things. Mary, I'll leave it to you.
Brianna, is the next slide our admission requirements, or is that later?
It's a couple slides away. So we
Okay.
will get to them.
So I can wait till we get there, because it might be good as a reference point.
Okay.
It's similar and a little different. So.
All right, so I will move on here. I won't go through every single one of these, but feel free to take a screenshot of this. I will also send it out to everyone who registered for this webinar. So this is if you are doing the general biology program, this is a roadmap that can lead you to the ELM. So if you see there, the 5 prerequisite courses for the ELM are in this roadmap here. So definitely take a screenshot of this for your records. Yeah, so I won't take too long on this slide, but is there anything anyone wants to add before I move on from this slide? Okay. Mary, it's all yours.
Great. So we're in very similar to the description for SF State. So basically a BABS 3.0 grade point average, and the level of competition is fierce. And that's so, I get letters from irate families and friends. My friend was 4.0. Well, so were about 400 others, and that alone isn't the distinguishing characteristic, but it becomes, that's a bit of the floor. We actually, though, recognize that some people may not have figured out life until their freshman or sophomore years are behind them as an undergrad. It's often not uncommon. We've had students who went into pre-med and realized that's not for me and didn't do great on some of the pre-med. They can do an appeal on why their grade point average may not have been stellar, let's put it that way. As an undergrad, that would have been me. But I came in through a different door. And so these are the prerequisites. We've just tightened them a little bit to require that they be completed at the time of admission. And therefore, we had a little more flexibility this year, and it got really complicated. So we wanted to leave it open until the admission review, and there were people that never were able to finish the prereqs, so they became ineligible, and it just added to confusion. We do, I think the next slide might be in line with this as well. if it's still ours. Yeah. So we put a great deal of importance on the goal statement and actually ask you to tell with some passion what it is that drew you to this profession at this time. Why do you want to be a nurse midwife? What calls to you? And what past experience might you have had? You also don't have to have had experience. There are students that haven't been able to afford to go to Africa and build health clinics and do some of those community service things, but they also are able to articulate that there's an attraction they have and a opportunity that they believe they can meet a need. And so it's very compelling what we read and what we expect in the goal statement. And these are some of the examples. What do you know about the nursing profession? I actually had one student who asked me for advice and I told her to not apply, who said, I'm doing this because nurses make good money. I thought, no. Yes, we do, better than we used to, but that's not why you should be applying. We also require recommendations. We do, of the 500 plus initial applications, we do a major screening committee screen of those and really put people in the qualified, non-qualified, just on the objective data. And then there's a little tighter screen and about 160 to 180 students are identified for interviews. And so we do interview everybody. This year was quite a challenge of virtual interviews and Zoom rooms galore, but we use faculty, past students, community members, because you're going to be part of the community. So nurses from Laguna Honda or San Francisco General or community clinics will be involved in those interviews, as well as some of the master's faculty. Only after that step and all of these impressions are calculated, are recommendations made for who should be admitted to the incoming class. It's also determined by the number of spaces available. So midwife will tell us they can take 20. FMP is the biggest one as well. We'll say we can take 15. And from there, we end up with our capacity of the specialties based on clinical sites and faculty. So it is complicated, it's time consuming. But it's an amazing process. And we actually will hold on to the interview component of this because in it, the students learn about us. Maybe this isn't the place they wish to be. And we learn a great deal about them. And it's the ability to articulate and answer questions. It's not a pop quiz. It's really a conversation. The virtual School of Nursing is behind me here in this photo. No one got to be on any of this campus. We're still off campus during the interview process, but we were able to identify about 90 students, offer them entry, and the first 80 that applied, basically confirmed are in. And so it's worth the time and the effort for both parties to go through these steps and to be very conscious of the commitment that you're making. And I say to students, you've taken the space of 3 or 4 other really qualified people in your specialty. So treasure it, value it, and not to make you feel guilty, but this is not to be tossed away or taken lightly. It's really a high compliment that you made it through. You endured the process, but more importantly, you made it through the application and selection process.
We too have a goal statement very much, and we look very much for the same points as Mary's crew over there. We also, and I'm sure Mary does this too, is to look for literacy. How well is it written? Now we recognize that your cousin Vinny could have done it, but we still weigh the style of writing and then the emphasis on your desire.
Yeah.
And I too would suggest that someone wouldn't come into nursing for the money because there are easier ways to make nurses pay without being a nurse. And
That's
so
right.
I would say go do them. But yes, the interview process is certainly very important to us as well, because this is one of the things, and it's not to say that this GPA is everything. And this is why we can offer perhaps a place in the School of Nursing for someone who has a GPA that is less than another person who might have a 4.0,
Yeah.
because they're extraordinary communicators. They have clarity of mind and purpose. They come across as very solid individuals. And that's what we're looking for. And if they have a 3.7, or, they beat out the 4.0. So there's hope. It's
Yeah.
not all GPA.
Absolutely. So this just summarizes that it's in fact the first year of a 3-year master's. And there is a dividing line. We don't give a bachelor's degree. So you come in with your previous degree. Our completion of that first year, the MEPN year, is really a pre-licensure year. You accumulate the right credits in the right courses that are required for a basic nurse, and you take the entry exam, which is the NCLEX, nursing licensure exam, that every RN graduate in the country, whether they be associate, baccalaureate, or advanced entry level, all take. It's the same exam. That's a big debate. Been talking about it for 40 years or so. And but it is required for you to finish pre-licensure, successfully pass the exam, and then you enter your master's program the following fall. So you don't step out at any time. You stay within the School of Nursing for those 3 years. There are students, though, who can, as a result of getting their RN, get some work, and we've had students work in student health, and we've had a ton of students volunteering and getting paid now in the vaccination efforts, because they were able to use their RN license. Our current students can't because they're not licensed yet. But last year's grads, they've been busy. So the RN comes in handy, but it is expected that you stay in the master's program. And there's a limit of work available in the real world, in the normal world, for a non-degree RN. And that's one of the messages we're pretty frank about. You could get your RN license and wave goodbye to the master's program. First of all, we'd really be disappointed in you. But more importantly, it took the spot of 3 or 4 other qualified people, but you're going to have very little career mobility. Nursing employment these days, they are looking for, expecting, and in many cases requiring a baccalaureate minimum. And in new cases, we're seeing with our advanced practice world, masters right now, and in the future at a doctorate in nursing practice. So you're not going to be very lucrative on the job market. So stay involved. That's our message is, you've applied, you've committed to the 3 years, stay committed to that 3 years.
And I'm going to echo what Mary said there. Many, many years ago, I graduated with an associate's degree because only those going into administration, and God forbid, I would never want to be an administrator, but they would go for a bachelor's degree, but that was 43 years ago. Okay. And so we've grown, and now, as much as the RN perhaps as places outside of big urban areas, perhaps has subacute roles in subacute hospitals as RNs, and they're great nurses, but bachelor's degree is going to be very below that is very difficult to be marketable.
Yeah.
So in our program, we give both bachelor's and master's, but you see that we don't confer them until you finished your master's. Why? Because in the past, when we did that, we found that people were using our master's degree, our combined bachelor's master's, as a bachelor's program and stepped out. And we just couldn't do that because we have a master's program to fill.
Yeah.
So we made that one of the rules of coming into the entry-level masters, that you must finish both and get conferred both.
Yeah.
Some of the employers are asking for a bachelor's as well, and that's what the sticking point was. So that's why we said we're going to confer both, and we managed to do that in the university setting that we have.
And our university setting, so that the opposite is true. UC Parnassus is a graduate campus for medical sciences, medicine, nursing, physical therapy, pharmacology, and dentistry. And so they are all at the graduate level, and we're prohibited from offering a baccalaureate degree. So let me complain. I spend a lot of time documenting for other states and other countries right now. A lot of nurses are going to Canada. I'm going to ask our students to stop doing that because their paperwork is torturous, but I have to demonstrate that they took the equivalent of a undergraduate program in regards to the pre-licensure nursing. But it's not a liberal arts education, and it is not equivalent to a baccalaureate degree. So it's a fine line that we walk. And some of the students have actually had trouble getting recognized in other states in the absence of getting a degree. So one advantage, of course, a big advantage, many exist for state, is that you get that bachelor's degree as well.
Yeah. But it really is the knowledge level, because the difference between being an ADN and a BSN is research.
Yeah.
And evidence-based practice research,
Right.
Community public health,
Community, yeah.
and leadership.
Yeah.
And those three components give you a bachelor's degree. So that's why we're saying that that's needed in nursing all over. So yeah, I mean, we partner with our community college partners with the ADN programs to help them get a bachelor's degree. And we have a co-enrolled bachelor's degree in that method. And that's how strongly we believe that the minimum requirement should be a bachelor's. And we've been aiming for that for how long now, Mary?
Since World War II, it got really serious. So,
Yeah.
I mean, since the 40s, seriously. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we've been talking about that for years and trying to make it happen. We're getting closer. We're closer.
Okay, so we are going to jump back to SFSU. We're going to talk a little bit more about pre-licensure, the BSN program. So the pre-licensure Bachelor of Science Nursing major at SF State is 2 years, so 4-semester program that prepares students for entry-level positions in professional nursing practice. Graduates, they can work as staff nurses, in a variety of settings, including maternity, pediatrics, medical surgical nursing, gerontology, psychiatric mental health, and community public health nursing.
Yeah, and I want to emphasize that this is a generalist. We're making a generalist, but you find your passion when you're in nursing school and you say, oh, that's what I like.
Yeah.
And that might be a complete surprise to you, because I went in thinking I'd be an adult ICU nurse, and I came out being a pediatric ICU nurse. And I've been in peds for 41 out of the 43 years. And that was a complete surprise. So you stay open and you find your heart. Now it says it's a 2-year program. That's because you've got 2 years of prereqs. Right. I mean, so it's actually a 4-year bachelor's degree in nursing. It's just that we separate it out before nursing, before you get into the School of Nursing, and after. And then, like I said, you've got a protected status once you have been admitted to the School of Nursing.
Okay, and one of our previous slides, this was in there, but the BSN it's at the main campus, accepts 40 students in the spring, 40 in the fall. And then were there summer admits for this, Marianne?
We have, yes, the off-campus accelerated program has a summer admit. Yeah, that's at the college. We hold it at the College of San Mateo, right? That's off campus, and that's our bachelor's there. Then we also have the ADN to BSN with the College of San Mateo. And then we also have another 40 students with the CCSF. And what they do is they co-enroll, right? They're co-enrolled with us. So they're actually being taught nursing by the community college, and we give all the bachelor's courses.
That's a great model.
Yeah. And we get them out in one more semester than usual.
Yeah.
I don't know
That's
about
great.
you, Mary, but it took me 4 more years to get a bachelor's.
Yeah, no, I'm a diploma grad, and
Yeah.
diploma programs are basically obsolete on the West Coast. And I was trained in a hospital school of nursing, 7 days a week. And I learned to be a really good direct care nurse, I have to admit, but we were supposed to just be the workers. And so it took me another 4 years to finish the bachelor's. Part of it is I wanted to work at the same time, but and I had the biggest chip on my shoulder because I felt like all that I'd learned was being disregarded, but it wasn't in a college setting. And I lacked that, and I lacked many of the liberal arts. So once I
Yep.
discovered how much I liked economics, I was like, wow, this is fun. So I'm glad I can learn these things now. But
And
yeah,
on my wall here, I've got a very strange thing. I do have a bachelor's degree from UCSF. It was the last one granted
yeah,
in
yeah,
86.
right.
And
So
that was the last bachelor's in nursing granted there. And then I have a master's from UCSF. So I can say it's a pretty damn good school.
Yeah.
and my doctorate's from there too. So we are looking now, we're looking at a TEAS score. We use that for the essential academic skills, right? That's what it stands for. Some people say it's has an aptitude part to it too. I'm not sure that that is true, but it certainly does test for the basic and essential academic skills. So we want a 78 on that test. Let's see what else. Oh, well, of course, we would highly recommend that anybody coming in would have all the prereqs done for nursing before. Now you can have, we want the sciences done. We need absolutely all the anatomy and chemistry, micro, statistics, that has to be all done. There might be some major part of the requirements for GED that still need to be done, right? We need all the prereqs done for nursing, but GED stuff, if you have one left over, you might need to do that. I would suggest you have them done before you come into the School of Nursing, or you have the other option, finished up your degree in biochemistry or biochem or whatever you're doing your undergraduate degree in, and then come in to our entry-level masters or go to Mary's other way of doing it.
Great. And then this is
Mary, hang on. Marianne, can you comment if the student enters pre-nursing and does their 2 years, but isn't accepted into the BSN, then what are their options at that point?
I would suggest that they finish off their degree.
Yeah.
You know, they can also apply again, right? But then you have too many units and you're wasting, I mean, apply those units, change your head around, to getting a master's degree. Don't waste those units, finish a degree that would be useful to you, you know, and then apply for an entry-level master's. That's what I would highly recommend.
Yeah. And what degree will the pre-nursing 2 years kind of, what will those units, what degree would that lead to if they were not to get into the nursing program?
Well, whatever they want to major in, like biology, or some people go into public health. but everybody needs those prereqs for us, right? For both UCSF and for San Francisco, for any school of nursing, you need the same prereqs. That's the only thing that's the same. After that, nursing education is wildly different, even though we have the same content somewhere.
Right.
But
this is
yeah,
where this is where I would point out a distinction, though, that in biology, there's two sets of courses, and Chris can comment on this a little bit more. There's a set of microbiology and physiology courses for non-majors who are in nursing that will not count towards a biology degree, but they will count towards nursing. And then there's a set of courses for majors, the physiology and microbiology courses, that will count for a major or for nursing. And so there's an important distinction there.
Good to know.
I would highly recommend that you go with the major for the biology. I mean, I just start with those. I mean, if you're in a biology major, you went there for a reason. You like it, I hope, you know. And there's nothing wrong with shooting for the stars and going to the higher level biology. It'll only help you in nursing. You know, I mean, the more you understand anatomy and physiology, the more you'll understand your pathophysiology. And then you're going to see the pathophysiology right in front of you manifested in human beings. So the more you understand, the better you'll be off. So I would say go to the higher levels. That's what, anyways, I don't know if I spoke out of turn there about your degrees, but.
That's okay. Chris, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I would just like to reiterate what you had said, that I think that you have the most flexibility going forward if a person takes the majors level biology courses. I think taking the non-majors biology courses are great if you want to transition into a non-biology program, if you're not planning to go into, or if you don't get into nursing program. But I think you have the most flexibility by taking the majors biology courses.
Yeah. Flexibility is the word.
Yeah.
So it looks like we're all in consensus
Yeah.
on that. But for your reference, here is the roadmap for the BSN program.
Yeah, and I just want to point out that it's the same program for the entry-level masters. They do exactly the same classes, okay, except that they have, in addition to those, some master's classes in the first semester, second semester, third semester, fourth semester. The fifth and sixth semester are only master's classes, right? And then they also have 500 hours that they have to complete with a clinical nurse specialist in a certain specialty in a hospital. So all of this there's a lot of clinical work involved there, but this is the same roadmap for undergrad as it is for grad with additions, okay? And if you look at this, you might not recognize, but so I'm going to tell you that it runs from a wellness to illness continuum. So we're going to start off with what is a healthy person? How do you assess the degree of health? Because that is certainly, I mean, we're not sick, but there are people who are sickly, or there are people who are on the verge of vulnerability. So we have to, how do you assess that? And how do you assess it in a community setting? How do you assess that on an individual? In the second semester, we go into psych and OB, because we think that first psych teaches you communication, and everybody who's in the hospital and everybody who's not well has a mental health component to that they are afraid, or they are in crisis, or they are needing some sort of support, and you have to be able to speak with someone who is in crisis. And reproductive health, for the most part, is not a crisis, but it is a vulnerable time when babies separate from moms. semester 3 is the first time you're really with sick people, and that is pediatrics and med surg and medical surgical nursing. And then in the 4th semester, we're going to put you out in the community again and also give you more intensive medical surgical nursing. And everybody gets that, right? And then the entry-level masters go on for another year.
So Brianna, you want to take us forward to, I think there's a lot of students waiting for some questions to be answered. Do you want to take us forward to that?
Yeah, I think we are there.
I was wondering though, could we hear from Melanie and have her give a little?
Yes, I
update?
was just going to ask her a question, indeed.
Good.
And so
Good.
Melanie, I wonder, if you have any advice for current students, since you're not as far out of the kind of school realm, do you have any advice for them as they're thinking about how to become a nurse and how they should think about things?
Yeah. For me, I would say, because I have both the biology and nursing background, is if nursing really is your end goal, just like all of you were saying before, think of why nursing and why you want to head towards that track. And I would say just get as much hands-on experience, whether it be paid or unpaid, volunteer, and just get involved. And that really shows that you're committed to what you're doing, you're engaged, you're always open to learning. And you don't want to have like a stagnant time where you're kind of fluctuating and deciding. You always want to be active doing something.
Very good. And maybe some of you saw we put up not too long ago a call for vaccine ambassadors. So there's a volunteer opportunity that people could be involved in very easily during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
So Brianna, you want to start going through the Q&A?
Sure. Let's see. First question here. I think we kind of answered this. A student got into SF State majoring in general biology, but would like to major in nursing. So I guess we kind of highlighted that.
Well, let's go ahead and answer it, because I'm actually not totally clear on how to make the switch from general biology into nursing. How would you do that, Marianne?
Well, make sure you have all the nursing prerequisites with all those labs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Make sure your GPA is really in good shape. Hopefully you've been doing volunteer work so that you can write about it and get some nice letter with letterhead on letterhead. So so your cousin Vinny didn't write it. And then it depends what if you wanted to come into a bachelor's, you just make sure you have all those prereqs and you can apply. The chances of getting in, like I said, 1 in 10, right? And remember that we also open it up to transfer students as well. So it's not just 1 in 10 SFSU students, right? So that makes the pool even a bit harder. In some ways, maybe not. It's still 1 in 10 people who are have all the right stuff. And then if you finish a bachelor's and you don't want, let's say you finish a bachelor's and you don't want a master's degree, you can do a double bachelor's. We accept second backs. What we have noticed, and I'm going to just give you guys a little bit of, even if you don't get in and get a degree in something else, you've got options. And if you really want to be a nurse, you'll be a nurse. Mm-hmm. There's many, many different options. So figure out if you want to do a double bachelor's. What I am going to say is that when you are a tad older, and I know I'm going to sound like an old lady saying this, but when you are a tad older, there is sometimes a little bit more settled within yourself about how you learn. You're an expert learner at this point. You're not 21 or 22. You've had some changes in your life. You're a little bit more mature. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing, especially when you're coming into the profession of nursing. It asks for a lot, both emotionally and physically. But it's a difficult profession. And so being a centered person is not a bad thing. And that happens, we get a little bit more centered as we get older. And what we're saying is that that could be a great benefit. And you can do a second bac, or you can do an entry-level master's degree. So finishing up your bio degree with all your options is a good thing, or whatever degree you want.
Mhm.
Thank you for that. So I'm going to pop in another question for Melanie here. Melanie, what do you know now after a few years of experience in the workforce that you wish you had known back when you were applying at this level?
Gotcha. I guess when I was back then, nursing, what I knew about it was very general. When I thought of nurse, I would think like the original bedside nurse, what you would see in like the movies or TV shows like Grey's Anatomy. But now working as a nurse, there is so many different variety. And
Are there
fields.
nurses there?
All the doctors do
And-
nursing.
Exactly.
They're jealous.
It's crazy. There's so many different types,
Yeah.
and I really want you to explore if nursing is what you want to do, because there's wound care nursing, there's fertility nursing, dermatology nursing, and I feel like you're not really exposed to it because I did the BSN, and like it was said in the slides, it's very general. It's a bedside type of
Mm.
nursing, and that's the one that pops up in a lot of people's minds, but there's a lot of different flexibility out there, and I encourage you to explore that.
That's great advice, Melanie.
Yeah, and Melanie, how did you find places to volunteer and explore those interests?
Right. I would say that my experience is very unique because what drew me to nursing originally was my grandpa being diagnosed with cancer and also congestive heart disease. So I ended up being a caregiver for him, and that's what ended me into the nursing track.
Mm.
But with that, when I was in nursing school, I also worked as a nursing assistant, and that really allowed me to see the role of a nurse in a hospital because I would work under nurses, and that also helped with my communication and just like understanding the system of a hospital. And also being part of pre-nursing society at Berkeley and also the NSA at SF State, I would say just join communities and clubs that allow you to surround yourself so you get that exposure and you have that mentorship to kind of guide you if you have questions.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Next question here, is the ELM program the same as the ABSN program, or are these separate programs?
They're different programs. The ADN to BSN program is when you are in the community college doing your nursing there, and then you do classes at the same time to get a BSN. So we will do a co-enrolled situation with the community college. That's a different program altogether than the bachelor's degree here, where you've done your prereqs and you're coming in and doing just nursing at SF State.
Thank you.
Yeah. Can I
So
also
Mary,
add something?
oh yeah, Melanie.
Yeah, so with the accelerated bachelor's and also the entry level master's, they both require a bachelor's and a different degree. But I did the San Francisco State just a BSN that doesn't require to have a bachelor's, but I applied with a bachelor's as
Right.
well for that program. And I actually could have gotten into an accelerated bachelor's, but I chose the SF State one because it's a 2-year program and I didn't want to feel rushed. And I like to take my time studying instead of like cramming, because like Samuel Merritt offers the ABSN in 1 year. And I thought that would have been a lot to study for, and
Mhm.
It
Yeah.
I
is.
wanted the extra time.
Sorry, we
Yeah,
they are accelerated. I may have misunderstood. We call it the BSNA, bachelor's accelerated, instead of the ABSN. So sorry. So they are exactly the same program, just sped up, and you've got 4 semesters in a row. They have exactly the same prereqs and everything, and that is our campus at College of San Mateo, and that's the only place that one is. It's exactly the same program.
yeah.
But
Thank
we,
you.
Melanie brings up a good point. For any accelerated program, you better be an expert to your learner,
Yeah.
and really know how you learn and have a system for it, because it is fast.
Yeah.
And especially our entry level masters, we put you through 3 years in 2 years, and that's a little hard.
Yeah, ours is intensive as well, Marianne, and we do June to June, 4 10-week quarters,
Yeah.
and it's pretty tiring. You get a little holiday break and a little break in the fall, but it is jam packed because we have what we're required to teach to allow them to sit for the licensure, and
Yeah.
so in order to keep it a 3-year program, it's a commitment we make. We have many students who are challenged with the intensity of the study requirements and the really sticking to it. So we have learning experts, and many students apply for accommodations because they're able to get a little extra time in exams, or get some learning aids. But it's not easy. It's doable. I mean, we have lots of great stories, but it is a real personal challenge.
Mhm.
Thank you. So Mary, maybe you can answer this one. Do the letters of recommendation need to be from the prerequisite courses?
No, not at all. In fact, we really want to hear more about this individual. Maybe you had, like Marianne said, maybe you had a job somewhere, or you were a volunteer. If you're a volunteer at Project Open Hand, we'd like to hear from Project Open Hand and find out more about your commitment to service, and your relationship with others. So it's not tied to the prereqs.
Okay. And Chris, how does a student go about cultivating a good letter of recommendation?
Well, I think to get a good letter of recommendation, a couple of things are important. One is to, I think, contact faculty who you've had at least a couple of classes with, and contacting faculty from smaller classes for letters of recommendations. People who know you best are great. I'd recommend going to office hours. And I'd also recommend, if you can, to get involved in someone's lab in their research, as that's one way in which faculty can get to know you very well. And it also benefits you in the sense that you get to see another side of biology, the side from someone who's actively contributing to furthering our knowledge, rather than just reading it in textbooks. And working in someone's lab, that's a wonderful way to, for you to get to know a faculty member, and a faculty member to get to know you.
And to know science. I mean,
Yes.
that's when you get your hands dirty, it's just great. And wash them.
Especially these days.
Yeah.
All right, next question here. They said, will we be going over this point system? I believe they're referring to, I don't know if it was Marianne or Mary. They said there's a point system with the admission.
No, we don't go over that. We have that within our admissions committee, but we don't publish it because it changes.
Yeah.
We reevaluate it, and we are making sure that everything is fair. And if we're, so it changes so often, we said, no, we're not going to publish that. So that's why we don't.
And we don't either. We don't want people studying for the test, and it's really a well-rounded applicant. It will be a well-rounded applicant. And to be honest, the interviews are weighted very heavily, but I don't know that there is a numerical to it. It's just that, what was your impression in addition to everything else we know about that person?
Right. And
so it sounds a little subjective, and it is, because nursing's subjective. Nursing's a caring science. So we really need to have, I keep saying, make sure we recruit nice people. We want smart people. That's a guarantee. We want nice people too. We want caring people.
And how to evaluate that is always sometimes difficult, but a bunch of nurses together have a pretty good gut sense. And that's another reason why we went into doing the interviews, is that we get a feeling for a person. We're experts at walking into a room and getting a feel for somebody and their condition. I mean, that's what we do. And so having all those variables on paper really adds up, okay.
Yeah.
But that last part is the one that even though it's really work intensive, gosh, it's really work intensive, but we think that it's worth it. It's very difficult now, especially online. It's very
Yeah.
difficult.
Yeah.
But we'll get back into person.
We will.
Another question here. How does obtaining a CNA license and experience play as a factor during applications?
Well, we give a point for being a CNA. And frankly, I think that it really helps the person decide whether nursing is for them. If they have worked as a nurse's assistant, they are not clueless on what they're getting into.
Mhm.
You know, they're going to see the good, the bad, the ugly, along with nurses, and some of the situations we are in the midst of and run. So I think being a CNA is only a great help. We give a point for being a paramedic as well. So those are very good experiences, but they are a specific education too, right? You have to be taught basic nursing care, and paramedics have to be taught basic life support and beyond. And so that's an education in and of itself too.
We have something similar, I'd say, for midwives. It's not uncommon to have someone that have served as a doula,
Yeah.
who assists women in labor and works with other midwives, but not required. We've had people as well apply. We have there's a new generation. It's wonderful, of social activists. And so many of our students come from community organizing roles, and they've been involved in vulnerable populations, whether it be ethnic, LGBTQ communities. They've already committed themselves to change. And then they realized, oh, and I'd like to be a nurse as well. And it's actually very cool because they keep us a little more honest as well. They keep the school moving forward and looking ahead.
And we love it when people are emphasizing community public health as well, because I mean, when you think about things like school nursing is where pediatrics meets community health, and then there's lots of reproductive health stuff in the community, right? I mean, and we're trying to keep people out of the hospital,
right?
And a lot of our education happens outside of hospitals, and so I agree with Mary. Those people who come to us from a deep sense of social justice and representing vulnerable populations. Hey, come to SF State or go to UCSF. I know that they're good.
Yep.
All right, so this one relates to being a CNA as well. This student is currently a CNA, and their major is physiology. They're thinking of doing an entry-level master program. And do you have any advice for them?
I think you're in a good position if you get all those other variables. You can, as a CNA, you've got probably some good representation of nurses that could write you letters. You've got some good experience behind you. If you do well on the T's and you keep that grade point average up, I would say if you're aiming for a master's degree and you don't have a bachelor's yet, just finish off, like we said, the higher level biology classes for the major in bio, and do that route. That's much more efficient. So
Yeah. I also want to add that as a CNA, especially if you're interested in the entry master's level, most likely you would be picking a specific specialty. And when I worked as a CNA, I was able to float to different units. So definitely take advantage of that so you can get exposed to different units and types of nurses to see what it is you really want to specialize in.
Mhm, mhm.
But don't forget, there's other routes. I mean, the CNA is usually thought of, for more of an acute care experience. There's senior centers and volunteering in those communities. There's homeless communities that you can volunteer in. And those expose you to a lot of health issues, let's be honest. So, and you could get some good references out of those leaders and the folks that you work with. You also identify some role models of people that you want to emulate. Homeless prenatal program is one that comes to mind. It has prepared a lot of nurse midwives, but it uses a lot of nurses from the community, and student volunteers are a tremendous asset. So there's a number of ways to get some of that real world experience and build credibility and a recommendation base at the same time.
This student has a kind of similar question. It says, I was initially pre-med. I am not a physiology major. I have completed all the prerequisites and I am in a CNA program right now. Would you suggest finishing the bio degree or give applying to nursing school as a transfer shot?
Well, I mean, the person has two routes, if you're nearing the end of the degree, I would say go for the end of the degree. And yeah, I did all the pre-med classes too after I was a nurse, because I was an ICU nurse and I felt a little burnt for a while. And I went screaming back to nursing. I did, because those weren't nice people in those classes. They were very competitive, and nose to the grindstone kind of people, and nurses were chatty. Anyways, I was used to chatty. But I would say optimize all your choices, right? I mean, and remember that getting into entry-level master's programs is also difficult. If you don't get in the first time, what are you going to do? You're going to fall back on your biology degree, and you can get a job, learn a few things about, all the stuff you need to, and reapply. If you want to be a nurse, you will be a nurse.
Yeah.
And I mean, some of the greatest nurses are truly those who have had a rough time getting through nursing school. So don't give up.
Yeah, we encourage people to reapply. It can be a complete random reason that perhaps a specialty was tapped out in terms of maximum numbers, and you were a highly qualified applicant. And so the following year, it's different, and you can tweak your goal statement, and, it's very common for folks to apply more than once and to be successful. And we do find that people will pick the 4 or 5 top tier schools, and they may apply for a number of them. So that's just, playing the odds.
Yeah, we feel very bad when we turn away perfectly lovely applicants, but we just don't have enough space. And if I could get enough money and clinical placements and a few other things like faculty, but let's not go there. Those are my bottlenecks. Otherwise, I would have a much bigger school of nursing here.
Yeah.
Next question. At the end of the master's program, are you licensed for being a practitioner, or is this an additional step after receiving your master's?
Well, that's a couple questions. You are licensed as a nurse first, right? You're a basic nurse. You've got a license to practice nursing. Then the BRN, if you're a nurse practitioner, you can help me out here, Mary. I think it's the same as it always was. The BRN gives you a license by your education to carry an NP number But then you need a national certification, and that's another sit down big exam.
Yeah, that's a standardized national exam, and that's absolutely right. So the education prepares you. You still have to finish that certification process. Highly, highly, highly required and recommended that you do it as fast as possible. You know, it's like
Yeah.
stu-
Oh yeah,
getting all that stuff in your head. You're ready to take the exam.
yeah.
And then there are re-credentialing requirements, you know, every 5 years, for example. But yeah, it lines up very well.
Now,
Next question. The student says, I heard that there is a limit to how valid the courses are. For example, if I had taken microbiology 7 years ago, will it still count, or would I need to take the course again before admission?
we have a 7-year limit on our courses, and that is because the sciences change a lot. And we have some people coming to us with bio courses that are 20 years old, and it's like, ooh. But you can make, I think that there is an exception that we can make, but you have to go through the process at San Francisco State, and that is a waiver. I think we can do a waiver for some, but it's still hard. Don't start thinking that you can just waiver your way through this. You can't. Remember, there is a reason for the length of time. The sciences change rapidly.
And we're the same. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head. That's what the website's for. And those requirements do change over time, what people's thinking are about currency of knowledge and how recent. It's not uncommon for folks to have to repeat some prerequisites, though.
That's right. For us too.
Question. Are there certain certifications that would help boost your chance of getting into the nursing program? I was thinking about getting BLS and phlebotomy certification.
I think that might help you when you get in. I'm not sure that it helped. I mean, I don't think it helps you get in. We don't give points for those things because anybody can become a phlebotomist and anybody can do BLS, right? So they don't help with getting in, but they really do help for some skills, basic skills in nursing.
Yeah, we don't require it. We do, once someone has been accepted, we do ask them to get BLS certified before they start their classes because they're working in healthcare environments. But no, it's not. I don't think either of those would give you a leg up in an application. Good to know.
We are so the same, Mary. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, next question. How many credits can we take until we are ineligible to apply to the program?
Well, there comes a time where it makes sense to finish your degree. And we're trying to make and keep our, I mean, you shouldn't be transferring 150 units and get your degree, Of course, I'm exaggerating there. Our undergraduate degree is 120 units, just right on the nose. So it's a packed degree. But if you are 100 units into a degree, I believe there's a limit of 90 that you can transfer. Is that correct? Or maybe Brianna's question. I don't. There is a limit to what we can transfer. I think it's 80 or 90 units before we say, whoa, now we've got a super unit person. There is a waiver for that, though. There's a waiver for everything, isn't there? I think it's 90.
Next question here. Although a 78 on the TEAs is the requirement, what score should we really shoot for?
Higher. Higher. I mean, if you get over 78, you're good. you're good to go. We put your actual score in there, so the higher the better. It's not, we don't weigh it hugely, but it is another variable that helps you squeak by perhaps another person.
Right, and then this next question also relates to that test. I am graduating with a biology degree and I intend on getting the ELM at SFSU. Will I need to take the TEAS test? Is this test part of the application?
I don't think we have it for the entry-level masters. I'm not sure on that one. I don't think we have it for them because we know that they have their basic skills because they have another degree.
Right, when I left, it wasn't on there, so.
Yeah, no,
You're
it's
right.
not. No, it's not because we don't ask for it because we know that they have the basic skills because they have another degree. We want a well-rounded person, right? Well-rounded education.
Okay. Is there a limit to how many times we can apply to SFSU nursing program?
No. Keep going. Just keep going. And don't, I mean, and finish your other degree and get a life and build a life and keep applying. And then once you're getting a little old on those prereqs, you've got to start thinking about, well, there are different ways to go through. Let me tell you other stories of how to get in. You finish your biology degree. You apply to CCSF and get into their diploma or their ADN or their ADN program. And then you do our bridge program along with that, and you've got a BSN along with another degree. So you're double bachelor prepared. You've got a biology degree to always fall back on or whatever degree you have finished. And then you have finished a
It's in the
bachelor's
wash
degree.
because I checked an armpit.
You're still on, Mary.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You know, there are many different ways of doing this, right? And don't keep applying to the same program. There are many programs out there. We've got one there's one at CCSF that is their college, one at CSM, their college, but with our bachelor's attached to it. Okay, you can get into one of those programs, or now that you've got a bachelor's, our bachelor's degree has just become, and that's something I should mention, our entry-level bachelor's degree, our accelerated bachelor's degree at CSM has just become a second back program for many different reasons that has nothing to do with the students so much as it has to do with the systems. But that we have just decided that. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that. So for someone who has finished their bachelor's degree, that is an option. So there's lots of different ways of there's 4 different ways of getting a bachelor's degree at San Francisco State Nursing. And I still know that we're the most cost effective in town.
All right, this is a good question here. What does the nursing community look like? As a queer POC, diversity is a concern I have.
Okay, well, I'm not POC, but I am queer. And I've been that way from the time I came out. So, I mean, as life gets better for gay people everywhere, life gets better in nursing. Has it always been peachy? No. And I think Mary understands that too. And, you know, I mean, but I am going to say that I think that different ways of being are quite respected in nursing. Maybe I'm just biased about our little Mecca here. You know, we live in a very wonderful place for being gay, but being gay and being a nurse is not I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's any harder. I've never not been a nurse. I don't know.
Yeah. No,
What do you
I
think?
I agree, Marianne. I mean, yes, I identify as lesbian as well. And I'll just say, I mean, not to brag, but I will. I was the first out president of the American Nurses Association and introduced my partner who was in the audience and had somebody come up from a lovely person from a southern state and say, "Oh, I didn't know you and Catherine were in business together." So partner, and but it was innocent. It was in a loving way, right?
Yeah.
But it
Oh,
didn't, it may have, some people might have thought it wasn't a great idea, but I won by 80% of a vote. You know, I mean, people were embracing, I think there is not enough diversity. Let's be honest, though. Nursing has been white and women
yeah.
and is still predominantly white and women. We work really hard at diversity and it's not easy. And a lot of it has to do with opportunities for students to study in grade school and high school and have access to academic success. That's, we owe those communities better outreach and opportunities for tutoring and mentoring. And so, and like you see is we have over about 40% plus of our current MEPN class are diverse students. And we're at about the same number, if not a little higher for next year. But it takes a lot of work. We do outreach and this program called Inside UCSF, where we're working with schools across the state to really identify opportunities for folks that might want to study in health science. So we could do better. I don't feel an overt discrimination, but I know discrimination is often very subtle
Yeah.
and bias is bias. So I believe I describe UC as a blue school in a blue city in a blue state, and we still don't do it completely perfectly each time. And so in terms of conversations, case studies, lectures that we give, our guest speakers, and our attention to inclusivity. But we're trying. And I'd say the profession is on a good path.
Mhm.
It's not unaware of the need to improve. And for some, it's not moving fast enough. Maybe for others, it's moving too fast. But I think we're a pretty politically conscious and responsible profession as well. And so
And
I'm pretty proud of the work we've done.
I would say there's a lot of gay nurses associations
Yeah.
too. And uh, there's the lavender lamps. That's a fun one. Um, and I can't. I can say that there has been times that just being a lesbian has been tough in all the years that I've been alive. I mean, it's just been tough sometimes. I don't necessarily think that it's nursing has made it any tougher. And I do think that nurses tend to be such wonderful people that maybe I'm a little bit biased about that, but for the most part, I think it's been good.
Yeah.
And we're learning. Oh my gosh, we're still learning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Melanie, what's your experience as somebody who's been through school more recently and entered the field more recently? How have you been received and how comfortable have you felt?
Yeah, so overall, I think working in where I am right now in a cardiac telemetry unit, we are a very diverse community and we are very open. We actually accept a lot of travel nurses. Half of our staff is travel nurses. So we are exposed to not just California, but nurses from all over. And I've met so many diverse groups and people. And honestly, I think it's a great community and it's very supportive and it just gives an eye-opening view to outside of what California can offer at the same time.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a few minutes left, and so I would like to do one live question. Sophia has their hand raised, so I'll allow Sophia to talk, and then we will wrap it up after this.
Great.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I just had a question. I am currently a health education major, and I have taken the liberty of taking the prerequisite classes for transferring into nursing school.
Mhm.
But I am a third year, and as you have said, at some point it makes sense to finish your degree. And I guess my question is this sort of gray area as do I need to be a biology major or a chemistry major or one of those to apply to nursing school if I do obtain
No.
a bachelor's degree in health education or a different major? As long as I have those prerequisites, are they still valid regardless?
Right. You can just need the prereqs for nursing school. You can have any degree. And we have a lot of people with health education degrees, kinesiology degrees, biochemistry, you name it. We've got all, as long as you have the prereqs, you've got a fine application.
And now I guess a second follow-up question with that is, as far as the GPA goes, is the GPA of those prerequisite classes only taken into account, or would it be my completed, bachelor's degree GPA overall?
We look at the last, it says the last 60 units, but I think we're beginning to narrow things down on some of our prereqs.
Okay.
So I think that especially in those sciences, make sure that those grades are higher. And if you want to redo one, let's say you had just a heck of a semester and you
Right.
got a B-, then you might want to redo it. And there's no harm in that. We'll take the highest grade,
Mhm. Mhm.
And it wouldn't do you any harm either if you didn't learn it quite well enough.
Right. Okay. All right, then. Thank you so much.
Okay, you're
Good
welcome.
luck.
All right. We're almost at the end here. I know there were some questions that we didn't get to. So what I will do is I will put my email in the chat. And then if you still have questions, if you have any follow-up questions, you can email them to me. And then I will help you get some answers to those questions.
I'd be glad to help, Brianna, if you need to send any my way.
Great.
Thanks so much. So yeah, so anybody can reach out to Brianna and then she'll reach out to Marianne or Mary to get some more answers because biology is trying to ramp up on our pre-nursing advising. And I just want to take a minute to really thank Brianna for planning this important session, and Marianne and Melanie and Mary for helping come, and Chris for coming to answer some questions. So I really appreciate the panelists today, their time and their wisdom, and hope that we can help you get all of your questions answered in the future. Brianna, will there be a recording of this posted on the biology website?
Yeah, so we'll post this on the biology website. I will also send this recording, and I can send the slides out to all the registrants of this webinar.
Terrific.
So you can have things to reference.
Yeah, and if you have friends who's like, oh, I wish I'd made that, then just direct them into those places to access the resources. All right. Thanks again, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right. Thank
Hope to
you.
see you in the fall, Marianne.
Yeah, we'll see each other.
Next time, next meeting. Take
Yeah,
care.
Yep.
you
Bye-bye.
too. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay,
Thank
bye.
you, Laura.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice
Thanks,
to meet you,
Melanie.
Melanie. Thank you.